Nobody warns you that the hardest part of losing someone isn't the grief. It's the question the funeral director asks you 48 hours later when you haven't slept and you can barely remember your own name. Burial or cremation, and you have to answer right now. We had never talked about it as a family. Because who does that over Sunday dinner? Pass the potatoes. And by the way, what do you want done with your body? It felt morbid, even taboo. The kind of conversation we kept pushing to someday, and someday never came. The moment the funeral director slid that form across the desk, the room split in half. My aunt wanted burial because that's what we've always done. And my cousin wanted cremation because it was more affordable and, honestly, more practical. And I was sitting there in the middle, like a referee at a boxing match where everyone is crying. Here's the thing nobody tells you. This question isn't really about logistics. It's about identity, legacy, and what your family believes happens after death. It is theology, economics, and family politics, all compressed into one impossible checkbox. Burial carries this ancient, almost primal weight, the idea that the body should return to the earth whole, that there's a place to go, a stone to touch, a location where the person still somehow exists. Cremation, on the other hand, feels to some people like liberation, like the soul isn't tethered to a plot of land somewhere that you have to pay property taxes on forever. We were also dealing with money, which nobody wants to admit out loud at a funeral home. But a traditional burial with a casket and plot can easily run $10,000 to $15,000 or more, while cremation can cost a fraction of that. And grief doesn't pause for your bank account to catch up. I made the mistake of Googling burial versus cremation at 2 a.m, which led me down a rabbit hole of Reddit threads, religious forums, and one surprisingly compelling YouTube video from a mortician named Caitlin who made death feel almost cozy. The irony is that I learned more about death from a stranger online at 2 a.m. than I ever did from any conversation with my actual family. Some people carry a deep religious conviction that resurrection requires a physical body, and dismissing that belief isn't something you can do with a shrug and a spreadsheet. On the other side, environmental arguments for cremation or even green burials are gaining real traction, because apparently we are now thinking about our carbon footprint even in death, which is either admirable or exhausting depending on your mood. Historically, cremation was actually the norm in many ancient cultures long before burial became the Western standard. So the idea that burial is traditional is really only traditional in a narrow cultural window of the last few centuries. Every generation has faced this question differently, shaped by religion, resources, and what they feared most about dying. The misconception I had to dismantle for my family was that choosing cremation means you don't get a memorial, that there's no ceremony, no closure, no ritual. That is completely false. You can have a full service, a gathering, a place to scatter ashes somewhere meaningful. And in some ways, the flexibility of cremation actually allows for a more personal and intentional farewell. What finally helped me decide was asking a simpler question. What would have made this person feel most like themselves? Not what the family needed, not what religion prescribed, not what the budget demanded, what would have honored who they actually were as a human being walking around on this earth. We chose cremation, and we chose to scatter the ashes at a place that mattered deeply to them, a specific overlook they visited every single year for decades. It felt more true than a headstone in a cemetery 2 states away that most of the family would visit maybe once. The family response was not unanimous, and pretending it was would be a lie. One relative didn't speak to me for about 3 weeks, convinced we had made a disrespectful choice. But the majority of the family, once they stood at that overlook on a cold Tuesday morning and said goodbye, felt something quiet and right settle over the whole thing. What I've learned, and what I'll carry forever, is that the real problem isn't the decision itself, it's the absence of the conversation that should have happened years earlier. The greatest gift you can give the people who love you is writing it down, telling someone, making it known before they're standing in that office with a form in their hands and tears in their eyes. Process matters more than perfection here. And right looks different for every family, every culture, every person. The discipline is in starting the conversation while everyone is still alive to have it. If you like this video, subscribe and check out all our other topics.